Okay. A very good evening, guys. Can you all let me know if you all can hear me and see a screen? Yes. Okay, good. So today, guys, is our last class for unit number 1. We will be focusing on focus area number 4. And this is the last free revision class that we have. You all submitted the paper last week for this. So I will discuss the paper today. I will also recap the area today. The mock answers for revision paper 4, you all will get it. Uh, let's say within 1 week from now, you will be able to get that uh, paper mark. And also, guys, once I mark and send the uh, papers on the group, our admin shares the papers on the group with a link. Make sure you download your paper and keep it because the papers in that link will get deleted. It will not be there forever. So some papers are already removed. So once you download your paper, you save it in your file somewhere in your phone or maybe in your laptop and you keep it. I've informed this before as well. Okay, so we'll get started and we'll get going. We have a big area to finish off today, that is production possibility curves. So let me share my screen. So this is our area for today. Okay, so Lama will start off with this area. This is a bit of a long area. We'll see. I'll try to finish it, recap it quickly within the time that we have so that even the paper is a little long. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so the area that we have today is production possibility curves. We'll start off with Lama. What is this PPC or what does this whole thing mean? You all would have seen a PPC, right? None of you all are new to this concept. You all have learned this in school. You all have learned this in a theory class. So what is a production possibility curve? A production possibility curve is Lamai. We say it's a line. It's a what? It's a line. It's a line that has been drawn to show what? We say a PPC is a line that has been drawn to show the combinations of two goods that can be produced if an economy uses all of its resources fully. So if an economy uses all of its resources fully, the PPC is what? The PPC is a line that is drawn that shows the different combinations of the two goods that we can produce. So let's say, for example, two goods, good X and good Y. The PPC can be, we'll talk about the shapes of the PPC and all in the next part of it. But we'll assume a very straight line PPC. So what is this PPC showing? It shows us the different combinations of two goods we can produce. So let's say 100 of good X, 50 of Y, 80 of X, 75 of Y. So it shows different combinations of two goods that can be produced. So then there are the determinants of a PPC. So what determines this amount of goods a country can produce? So for example, if you take let's take two countries. If you take, let's say Sri Lanka's PPC. Let's say this is Sri Lanka's PPC. So let's say cars and clothes. So let's say Sri Lanka can produce 100 cars or 1,000 clothes. Then let's say we take Japan's PPC. Japan's PPC, let's say Japan can produce 500 cars. And let's say they can produce 10,000 clothes. Can you tell me why do you think Japan's PPC is much bigger than Sri Lanka's PPC? What actually determines this? What are the factors that determine the size of your PPC? Or what are the factors that determine the amount of goods and services you can produce? Can you give me some reasons? Why is Japan's PPC? Now, when Sri Lanka can produce only 100 cars, why is Japan able to produce 500 cars? When Sri Lanka can produce only 1,000 clothes, how can Japan produce, let's say, 10,000 clothes? What are the determinants of this PPC? How come Japan has a much bigger PPC than Sri Lanka? So what are the main determinants, Lamai? There are two main determinants, no? One is the amount of resources you have. So probably what would have been the story is Japan has more resources than us. That could be one reason. Another reason could be Japan has way better factor productivity. Their resources are more productive than us. So maybe that is another reason. So if you dig a little deeper into the reasons, we come to this line. You see, the factors that determine the production possibility front. So think of it. Why do you think Japan would have had a big PPC? How come they had a way bigger PPC than Sri Lanka? Because Japan had a very high level of resource endowment. What is resource endowment? Resource endowment means how much of resources you have. So the amount of land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship in Japan might be way higher than in Sri Lanka. That's why Japan's PPC is big. And not just the resources, it's also the resource productivity or your factor productivity. In Japan, maybe Lamai, they have better technology. Maybe they have better management methods. Maybe they have better human capital. Remember, we learned human capital. Maybe they have better human capital. The skills, the knowledge of their labor is much higher. Maybe Japan is practicing things like division of labor and specialization. So that is why Japan's PPC is much bigger. So what are the factors, if they ask you, Lamai, what are the factors that determine the size of a PPC? Or what are the factors that determine the production potential of a country? You need to write these two. One is the amount of resources you have. We call it resource endowment. Second is your productivity of your resources, or we can say factor productivity. Then, Lamai, this PPC is a model. It's a very simplified model of the real world. Now, in the real world, a country won't produce two goods, no? A country produces millions and millions of goods. So in the real world, my situation is much different. But these are what? These are economic models. So economic models always have assumptions. So then if they ask you, what are the assumptions of a PPC? So the assumptions of a PPC is, number one, we assume, Lamai, that a country produces only two goods. Because otherwise you can't draw the graph. If there are, how are you going to put in hundreds of goods in a graph? So here the two goods are the two different axes. So that's one assumption we make. We also assume that the resource stock is constant. Now, when drawing the PPC, we make an assumption that the stock is constant. That's how we can draw the PPC. Because now just take in the real world. Every day one person is dying. Every minute one person is dying. Every minute a new fellow is being born. Every minute a machine might get broken down. So then how can you draw the PPC? So when you're drawing the PPC, you assume, okay, so let's say Sri Lanka has 10 million in our labor force. So we keep it constant only and we draw it. So we assume that the resources are constant, both in terms of quality and quantity. The quality of your resources and the amount of resources you have, we assume that it is constant. And then we also assume that the technology is constant. Because technology is also changing in Llama every time. So we assume that's also constant. And then another assumption we make is that all the resources are fully utilized. Now, in the real world, you will never have resources being fully utilized. Now, in Sri Lanka, do you think all the labor out there is fully utilized? There are so many people who don't have jobs. There are so many people who have jobs, but they are doing nothing. They are going to office and just sitting in the table and wait. There are people like that also. So are they fully utilized? But in the PPC model, we assume that if all the resources are fully utilized, then a country can, kind of produce this amount of. So that's the determinants of a PPC and then the assumptions of a PPC. So a big question that a lot of you all have is, so how do we figure out whether the PPC is shifting or not? Remember now in your paper, Lamai, they don't ask you questions like this, no. They give you situations and ask, illustrate this on a PPC. So then how are you going to figure out, do we shift the PPC? Is it a point moving inside? Is it a point moving? Or is it a whole curve shifting in or out? How do you figure that out, Lamai? That is based on, I'll show you all when we do questions also. That is based on these determinants, Lamai. So if any of these determinants are changing, only then the PPC will shift. What did I tell? the PPC will shift, the production possibility curve will shift only if any of the determinants change. So only if your resource endowment. So what is your resource endowment? That is the amount of land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship you have. So if this changes, your PPC will shift. So I'll give you an example. In your paper, they will not give an example saying capital increased. So if capital increased, you can produce more, and the PPC will shift to the right. Capital increase will shift. But they are not going to give you a baby question saying capital increase, show this on a PPC. What they would say is, they would give you an example like, they would say, Sri Lanka imported new machinery from Japan. Show that on the PPs. So new machinery means undone. Machines are coming in, capital has increased. Now let's say labor has decreased. They won't say labor decrease. How will they say that? They will say, okay, many Sri Lankans due to the crisis have migrated from the country. Then migrated means they have left the country and gone. That means our labor has decreased. Then we can shift the PPC inside. So remember, if your resource endowment, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, if any of these changes, if it increases, PPC will shift to the right. If it decreases, PPC will shift to the left. And you should also know that they are not going to directly test you this. Like I said, they won't say capital increase. Now, they won't say capital decrease. Now, instead of saying capital decrease, what they will say there has been a natural disaster. So many buildings have got destroyed and capital has decreased. So that's how the questions come in your paper. So that's why just learning the theory isn't going to help, Lama. You have to write. That's where the revision class, and that's why that all the papers that you have. How many of you all have completed most of the papers? Just asking. Last week you all had a holiday also. Would have had some time to catch up. Let's say apart from focus area 4, have you all done for the 3 main papers? Have you all done the past papers? Yes, no. The papers are just nicely inside the file, folded and kept. Did you all try the take-home paper, guys? The take-home paper is actually small. That's not a big one. You can actually finish that in, let's say, around 1 hour, because that has only 10 MCQs and 1 essay question. So 1 essay question is 30 minutes. 10 MCQs are like 2 minutes each, cut at 20 minutes now. So it will only take you maximum 1 hour to finish the take-home paper. So that's up to you whether you allocate time and do so. Don't tell me that you don't have 1 hour during a week to do a take-home paper. So either wake up early or stay up a little at night and get things done. If the papers are too much, you can let me know. I ask this in the theory class also on Monday. I can definitely reduce it. That reduces my printing cost also. So, but put in that effort, Lamai, because again, theory revision, both of it. I've told you all this before also. My plan is to finish off by next year by March. So by next year, March, you will be done with the theory class syllabus and the revision class syllabus. So you will finish the syllabus twice. In the theory, you learn the theory. Here you recap it and do the papers. So just imagine, I don't know when your exam would be, ideally August, or even if it gets pushed a little. By March itself, you're finished with the syllabus twice. So then there onwards, Lamai, we can work on a fast track program. We can do full papers. You can do all of that. So this period, this is September, October, November, December, January, February, March. That's around 7 months. So this next 7 months is going to be a lot of work. You will have a lot of papers in revision. Theory, there would be extra classes. So hang in there and get it done. You will then realize, Lama, that you're way ahead compared to the normal people. I'm not a fan of dragging the syllabus until 1 or 2 months before the exam. I feel that's no point. So I will finish it sooner so that you all have more time on your own to study and you actually get that advantage. But it won't be easy. There will be extra classes. There'll be a lot of papers to submit. Right? There could be now revision papers. You all have 1 a week now. There could be some weeks where you have 2 revision papers to do and submit. There could be weeks like that as well. So get the work done. Okay. Then another reason, Lamai, I told you when the PPC can shift. One is if your resource endowment changes. And second reason is, Lamai, if your resource productivity changes. Resource productivity, or we say factor productivity. So if your factor productivity, let's say, Lamai, now, they say technology improves and the PPC can shift to the right. Then how can they say human capital improve? They can say things like For example, government has started a program to provide training for the employees. And that means human capital is increasing. We can go and shift the PPC. So remember, the PPC will only shift out or in if what happens? If one of these determinants change. For any other reason, PPC won't shift. PPC will only shift either your resource endowment, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship has to change, or your resource productivity, the technology, the human capital, management methods, division of labor and specialized, those things have to change. Only then PPC will shift. So have that in mind. We'll apply that when we discuss the paper. So then, with that basics in mind, we'll now connect this PPC knowledge that we have to something called opportunity cost. How does the PPC show opportunity cost? Remember, we learned opportunity cost in our second focus area. Opportunity cost is what you sacrifice, no? So how does this PPC show opportunity cost now? And based on opportunity cost, how does the shape of the PPC get determined? So we say, the slope of the PPC. Slope, in the other words, in simple words, slope means the shape of the PPC. The slope of the PPC determines the opportunity cost. So if you have a linear PPC, linear means a straight line PPC. If your PPC is a straight line like that, then we say there is constant opportunity cost. If your PPC is concave, then we say that is increasing opportunity cost. So if this is linear, we call it this, or linear, or you can say straight line, constant. And if it is a concave PPC, we say there is increasing opportunity cost. So what we'll do now is we'll go into detail of this. We'll go a little bit into detail what is constant opportunity cost. We'll go into detail on what is increasing opportunity cost. I know you all know this, but we'll quickly recap because some of you would have forgotten. So what is this constant opportunity cost? I'll share these slides also. You all can have refer to it. You can mainly refer to your theory note, Lamai. You all have a theory note too. So refer to that mainly. I will share the slides if you all want to, that you can refer if you don't have a theory. No. So what is constant opportunity cost? Constant opportunity cost is where when you increase the production of one good by an equal amount, the amount of the other good you sacrifice remains constant. For example, here's when I am going from point A to point B in this graph, when I'm going from point A to point B, I'm increasing the production of good tea by 250. When I increase the production of good tea by 250, I sacrifice good R by 250. It doesn't have to be 250, 250 itself. It can be another number. Oh, I'll cut this zero. Others you all will think this is constant. So I'll cut the last zero. So when you increase good tea by 250, you have to sacrifice good R by 25. 90 became 60. When you go from B to C again, when you increase good tea by another 250, you again sacrifice another 25. So the amount of good R that you keep on sacrificing is the same, no? Every time you increase good tea by 250, 250, 250, 250, the amount of R you sacrifice is 25, 25, 25, 25. It works the other way around as well. If you increase R by 25, 25, 25, you will sacrifice this by 250, 250, 250. So that's what you call constant opportunity cost. The amount that you're sacrificing is always the same, no? When you're going from one point to another point, what you sacrifice is what we call opportunity cost. So what you are sacrificing here is remaining constant. I'm not saying zero opportunity cost. I'm saying there is an opportunity cost, but the opportunity cost is constant. So every time we move from one point to another point, when we increase this good by 250, 250, 250, we keep on sacrificing the same amount of that. That's what you call constant opportunity. So if you want to calculate constant now, if they ask you, Lama, in your paper, if they ask you to calculate the marginal opportunity cost, if they ask you to calculate the marginal opportunity cost of moving from point A to point B, what can you do? You can use this equation now. And this is the equation for marginal opportunity cost. Foregone amount of goods divided by the gained amount of goods or increased amount of goods. So can you all give me the numbers for this equation? When I'm moving from A to B, how much is foregone, how much is gained? Hmm? Give me the numbers. If you get a question like now, you all know this, Nilama. How much is foregone, how much is gained? We're moving from A to B. Quickly, give me the numbers. Others? So we are foregoing here. When you're going from A to B, 90 is becoming 65. So we are foregoing 25 units of good R. And what are we gaining? When we are going from A to B, we are gaining 250 units of good T. So foregone divided by gain. Then how much is that? 25 divided by 250, you get 0.1. 0.1 what? Some of y'all can't figure that out also. Is it 0.5, 0.1? Rupees the 0.1, R the 0.1, T the... How do you figure that out? Remember, my opportunity cost is always what you sacrifice. What you sacrifice. So when going from A to B, which good are you sacrificing? Good T the good R the. Which good are you sacrificing? Which good are you foregoing? Good R. So this is 0.1 units of good R. Have that in mind. Then shall we do it the other way? What if in your exam paper they ask you, what is the marginal opportunity cost? What is the marginal opportunity cost when moving from B to A? Can you all give me the number for this level? Now we are not going from A to B, we are going the other way around. So you can go that way also. Now you're going from B to A. When you're going from B to A, what are you sacrificing? At point B, you're producing 500 of T. When you go to A, you're producing only 250 of T. So you're foregoing 250 units of T. And you're gaining 25 units of R. So then what is the opportunity cost? 10 what? Remember, when you're writing answers, write complete answer. Don't say 10. In the chat box, it's okay. When you're writing in your paper, give complete answer. That's the small things that you have to learn in the revision class. 0. 10 what? 10 T. 10. So you can say, more correct to say 10 units of good T. More complete to say something like that. So that's constant opportunity cost. A very easy thing. What's constant opportunity cost? Every time you increase the production of one good by equal amount, the amount of the other good you sacrifice remains constant. So when there's constant opportunity cost, how does your PPC look like? It's a straight line PPC. Then am I going into increasing opportunity cost? Now, what is increasing opportunity cost? Increasing opportunity cost is where I'm like, when you increase the production of one good by equal amount, the amount of other good you sacrifice keeps increasing. Yes, see, when I go from point A to B, right, I am increasing cameras by 10 units. First, when I increase from 10 to 20 means 10 units. I increase cameras by 10. So I have to sacrifice how much? One mobile phone. That is my opportunity cost. When I increase cameras by another 10, let's say I go from B to C. Now I have to sacrifice 4 mobile. Now remember in my previous example, the amount of good R you sacrifice now I remain constant. No? Every time it was 25, 25, 25, 25, constant opportunity cost. But here what is happening? Here, first I sacrificed 1 unit. Now I have to sacrifice 4 units. My opportunity cost is increasing. That's what we call increasing opportunity cost. When you increase the production of one good by an equal amount, the amount of the other good you sacrifice keeps increasing. You keep on sacrificing more and more and more of the other good. So then when there is increasing opportunity cost, how does your PPC look like? It's concave to the horizon. Shall we just do a small calculation here also? We'll take my point B to C. Can you all calculate? Quickly help me calculate this. The marginal opportunity cost. The marginal opportunity cost when moving from point B to point C. Foregone divided by gain. Give me the numbers. When going from B to C, we are foregoing 4 mobile phones. Foregone 4. What are we gaining? We are gaining 10 cameras. So 4 divided by 10, you get 0 0.4. 0 0.4 units of what? What are we sacrificing when going from B to C? We're sacrificing mobile phones. 0 0.4 units of mobile. We'll do another one the other way around. We'll say B to A cube. Can you all give me this? The marginal opportunity cost of going from point B to point A. B to A. What are we foregoing? When you're going from, let's say, B to A, you're foregoing 10 cameras. What are you gaining? You're gaining 1 mobile phone. So you all need to know how to nicely read this graph. You're gaining 1 mobile phone. So 10 divided by 1, you get 10. 10 what? 10 units of cameras. 10 units of price. Okay, done. Right. Guys, also one more thing, just a reminder. I sent this in the group in case you all missed it. Just let your friends also know who are not in the class. I will be couriering your next set of tunes. That is the unit 2 papers, most likely this Friday. So today is Wednesday, no? Not tomorrow. Day after is where I am planning to courier. I have not got it from the printer yet. So for unit 2 also, you will get a similar file, similar amount of papers, the main paper, past paper, take home paper, all of those are there. You will get it. So that is not a free class. It's a paid one. I have sent the fees details on the group. If you all are registering, make sure to pay the fee and register. Usually deadline is the 10th, but if you can pay earlier, so then the tunes will be sent on Friday's batch itself. So just a reminder so that you have the tute on time. Okay. Yeah. Right. Then we'll go into this. We'll go into the reasons behind this. Now, how come there is some goods have constant opportunity cost? How come some goods end up having increasing opportunity cost? Did my screen stop? No, no. Yes, you can see my screen, right? Yeah, I got a message saying the screen was stopped. Right. So why does this happen? Now, this is something, Lamai, that you all will have to sometimes explain also. Now, here I have given in point form. No? You all should put that note to explain this as well. I think I have a question in the this thing or in the past papers when there are questions, I'll give you all detailed answers. So why do we have constant opportunity cost? The reasons behind constant opportunity cost is if, now my screen went, no? Give me a second. Did my this one go? Okay, guys, give me 1 second. Hold on. I think my other device left the meeting. Hold on.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Right. Join from the other device. Something has happened to that. Hmm. Okay. Hope you all can see a screen now. Yes. Okay. Right. So now am I coming into the reasons? Okay. So what are the reasons behind constant opportunity cost and the reasons behind increasing opportunity cost? Now, this increasing opportunity cost number, sometimes they can call it law of increasing opportunity cost. Now, don't get scared if they say law of increasing opportunity cost. That's increasing opportunity cost. If they ask you explain law of increasing opportunity cost, you explain increasing opportunity. If they ask you explain the reasons behind law of increasing opportunity cost, same thing now. So what are the reasons, Laman? Reasons behind constant opportunity cost is one is if the two goods are using Lamai homogeneous resources. What are homogeneous? If the two goods are using the same resources, very similar resources, then you might have constant opportunity. And also, if the resources efficient in one industry are equally efficient in the other industry. For example, Lamai, we'll take an example of, let's say, the production of bread and bun scheme. Now, if you take bread and buns, the resources are somewhat similar. No? There is a baker, there is flour, there is an oven, right? So somewhat similar. The baker, if you put him in the bun industry or the bread industry, he can bake, no problem. He's efficient in this, also efficient in that also. So then you will have constant opportunity cost. Then when will you have increasing opportunity cost? If the resources are different, Laman. Let's say, for example, we'll take bread and mobile phones. Bread and mobile phones. So the production of bread, now for bread lama, you need an oven, you need a bakery, you need a baker, you need flour. But if you take mobile phones, the resources are completely different, non-homogeneous resources. Resources between the two industries are completely different from one another. Then you will have increasing opportunities. Another reason is Lamai, the resources efficient in one industry might not be efficient in the other. So if you take a guy who is baking bread, if you take him and put in the mobile phone industry, he doesn't know what to do. He's not efficient in that. Maybe if you take a very highly skilled software engineer who is, let's say, developing apps for mobile phones, you take that fellow and put him in a bakery, he doesn't know what to do. So resources efficient in one industry are not efficient in the other. That's another reason for increasing opportunity. And the third reason you can give is the technology used to produce the two goods are different. Now, how do you bake bread? There is the oven, you connect it to electricity, and the bread is made. How do you make a mobile phone? I don't even know how the technology works. That's completely different. If you want, Lamai, for this one, you can also say the technology is similar. You can give that as a reason as well. Those are the reasons behind constant and increasing opportunity cost. Is that okay? Small recap on that story. So far, what did we learn? We learned what is a PPC, the assumptions and determinants. Then we talked about opportunity cost, increasing and constant opportunity cost. I'm hoping you all remember this part from your theory class. Shape, any questions on that for now? Okay. Then we'll move into the next part of this. Yes, also one more thing, I'm just repeating this. If anyone is learning the unit for the very first time, revision class will be a little too fast and it will be a little hard also because you might not be able to do the paper. Because you do the paper before I teach you the part. So it'll be a little hard. So I'm hoping even if you're not a part of my theory class, you're at least a part of some other way you're covering your theory, maybe in school or I don't care where, but you're learning that theory part because otherwise this becomes complete nonsense. Okay. Then we'll get into this. We'll now come into Lamai representing concepts on a PPs. Remember, we talked about at the very beginning of the unit microeconomic and macroeconomic concepts. So we'll start with Lamai how to show certain microeconomic concepts. So microeconomic concepts like what? Things like scarcity. So you all are going to help me on how to show these Lamai. Okay. So tell me, how can we show scarcity on a PPs? Where do we show scarcity? Scarcity is Lamai. We don't have the resources to achieve that. How do we show scarcity? Let's say this is good Y, let's say this is good X. Where is scarcity? Scarcity is at a point outside the PPC, Scarce, how do we show scarcity? So scarcity, let's say, is a point outside the PP because that is a point that is unattainable. We don't have the resources to produce that. We can maximum produce only this much and this much. That is the maximum we can produce. We can't produce beyond the PPs. So point A represents scarcity. How do we represent alternative uses? How do we show alternative uses on a PPs? Alternative uses can actually be any point. In your exam, they will not even ask you to show alternative uses. Because let's say this is point B. This is point C. Let's say this is point D. So point A, B, C, and D, all of it represents alternative uses. So different. So even a point outside Lama, you can say practically not possible, but even the scarcity point, you can consider it as alternative use. And usually in your exam, they will not ask you to show this Lama because any answer you give is correct. If you just put a dot and give, that's correct. So alternative uses can be almost anything. Then how do we show choice on a PPs? Now, from these alternative uses, Lamai, which one do you think you would make a choice between? So realistically, you can produce at B, C, and D. But if you make a further this thing, which one do you think is a better one to do? From B, C, and D, two points are better. So you can state B and C as choice. Now remember, Lamai, in your exam, okay, now remember this. In your exam, if they ask you to show choice, you can't just mark B and C. In your exam, Lamai, mehema karana. So for example, if they ask you to show choice, you can say, okay, now let's say for example, at point B, you can produce 100 units of Y and let's say 20 units of X. At point C, let's say you can produce 75 units of Y and 30 units of X. So if they ask you to show choice, put that label with some numbers and show. So now don't just say B and C. So you can say, okay, the economy can make a choice between either producing 100Y and 20X, that is at point B, or they can make a choice of producing 75Y and 30X, that is at point. So when you're giving answers, Lamai, that's what you have to practice in the revision class. Some of you will give incomplete answers, not that you don't know. You know. Well, no, choice is not a difficult thing. But the answer that you are writing is not giving you that full mark. How can you improve on that? By writing more and more. That's why every week you have a paper, we mark it and give, you see where you lost marks. I give you the marking scheme. You have so many papers to do at home. The more and more you write, your answer writing gets. So that has to start from now onwards. Otherwise, now you can't improve your answer writing in a month. It takes time, little by little by little. to improve on your answer. Right? So if they ask you to show a choice, don't just jot 2 points and show. Probably label that, put some numbers and say economy has to make a choice between either point B, where they can produce 120, or they have to make a choice of producing at point C, where they can produce 75 and 30. Okay. Done. Then now I will go into how do you show opportunity cost on a PPC. Now, this is an interesting one. Okay, I want you all to properly listen to this and put this into your head. So let's say Lamai will take two goods. Let's say this is motor vehicles, and let's say this is clothes. If you use all your resources, let's say we can produce 100 motor vehicles. If we use all our resources for clothes, let's say we can produce 2000 clothes. Okay, these are the two extreme points. Then in the middle of this, there is point A, and also there is point B. Okay, move this a little this side. For 2000. Okay. So let's say Namai, at these points, I'll give you how much we can produce. So let's say at these points, you can produce, okay, let's say at point A, you can produce, let's say, Lamai, 75 motor vehicles, and let's say 1200 floats. At point B, we'll say you can produce 30 motor vehicles, and let's say 1800 floats. Let's say these are the 2 points. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a question. We'll start with, and listen very carefully. I'll show you the different type of questions that they can ask you. The first one that I'm asking you is, what is the opportunity cost? What is the opportunity cost of moving from point A to B? Can you give me an answer? What's the opportunity cost of moving from point A to B? What's the opportunity cost? Do we have to use an equation? Do we just give a number? How do we get this? When you're moving from A to B, you're increasing the production of clothes by 300, not 300, anyway, 600. And you're sacrificing the production of motor vehicles by 45. Okay? 75 is becoming 30. Right. Remember, if they just ask you what is the opportunity cost of moving from A to B, you can then say your answer would be, don't use the equation. Equation is my marginal opportunity cost. The equation is there for one additional unit. In general, if they ask you what's the opportunity cost of moving from A to B, you can say it is what? 45 units of motor vehicles. You can give your answer like that. Same way, the other side, if they ask you, what is the opportunity cost of moving from B to A? Can you give me an answer for that? When you're going from point B to point A, what are you sacrificing? Going from B to A, there you are sacrificing 600 units of goods. So here you will say 600 units of goods. Then what if the question turned around and the question said, what is the what is the marginal opportunity cost or the opportunity cost of producing one extra unit? Opportunity cost of producing one extra unit when moving from A to B. Now what do you do? What is the marginal opportunity cost of moving from A to B? Now, that is where you use the equation. If they say opportunity cost of producing one extra unit, marginal opportunity cost, and then you use the equation. What's the equation? Remember, we learned it before. Foregone divided by gain. So can you give me the numbers, Lama? How much is foregone? How much is gain? When you're going from A to B. You're foregoing 45 mobile phones, sorry, motor vehicles, foregoing 45. What are you gaining? You're gaining 600 clothes. So then what is your opportunity cost? 0.075, 0.075 munada, 0.075 units of motor vehicles. What you are sacrificing is your opportunity cost. Same thing, Lama, if they ask you what is the marginal opportunity cost of moving from B to A. Now, I'm not writing the whole thing now because I'll waste time. Then can you all give me the number? Marginal opportunity, or if they say additional this, then what's this? What's our numbers now? Gain, when you're going from B to A, you're foregoing 600. You're gaining 45. Then what's your opportunity cost? 13.33. Yeah, don't worry about the numbers. My numbers here are decimal, but don't worry. 13.33 units of what? 13.33 units of. Okay. Is that clear, Lamai? When do you use the equation and when you not use the equation? If they say marginal opportunity cost, or if they say opportunity cost of one extra unit, then use the equation. Otherwise, give it as a full noun. Okay. There is one more. What if I ask you, what if I ask you, what is the opportunity cost of producing? I'll write it on top here. What is the opportunity cost of producing let's say 75 motor vehicles? Can you all give me an answer for this? What's the opportunity cost of producing 75 motor vehicles? Think. Is it 600 or 800? That's what I want you to think. What's the opportunity cost of producing 75 motor vehicles? When you're producing 75 motor vehicles, you can produce 1,200 clothes. Okay. How much of clothes can't you produce? Because you're producing 75 motor vehicles. When you produce 75 motor vehicles, you can produce 1,200 clothes. Opportunity cost is what you sacrifice, what you can't produce. So because of the fact that you're producing 75 motor vehicles, think how much of clothes can't you produce? Read the PPC. You're only producing 1,200. If not for that 75 motor vehicles, you would have produced 2,000 clothes now. Because you're producing 75 motor vehicles, you can produce only 1,200. Otherwise, you could have produced 2,000 if you were producing nothing. So your opportunity cost is this entire thing, Lama. What is the opportunity cost of producing 75 motor vehicles? You can say The opportunity cost is 800 units of clothes. How much of clothes you can't produce? Then what if I ask you the other way? What if I ask you what is the opportunity cost of producing 1,200 clothes? I'm not writing the full question. Can you give me a number for this? There is a question similar to this in your paper as well. Can you tell me the number for this? Because you're producing 1,200 clothes, you can produce 75 motor vehicles. How much of motor vehicles can't you produce? That is what opportunity cost is. Because you're producing 1,200 clothes, you can produce 75 motor vehicles. How much of motor vehicles can't you produce? You can't produce the 25 units. There the answer would be 25 units of motor vehicles. Okay. So that's the different types of questions you can get. So just learning the theory is not enough, Lama. You have to do questions. When you do questions, you get it wrong, then you realize it goes into your head. That's how it will work. Just listening to me talk about this will not help. So put that into your head. You'll do the main paper, but please take some time, see what type of questions are there in the past papers, what type of questions I put in the take-home paper. So the more you do, the better you will. Done. Then Lama will move into this concept, economic efficiency. This also is a bit of a, not a very difficult concept, but something that we always test Lama. Now, on a PPC shows Lamai different combinations of goods. No? So there are so many points on a PPC. Now, if you take up on a PPC Lamai, there are points outside, points inside, points on the PPC. So many points are there. At which point should we produce? How does a country figure out මොන point එකේද produce කරන්නේ? At which point do we produce? Now, with that thought in mind only, there is something called economic efficiency. What is economic efficiency? Economic efficiency is where you produce the goods that is most wanted by the society. You produce the goods and services desired by the society, what the society wants. You produce what the society wants at the most optimal level of output. You produce what the society wants without any wastage by using all your resources. That is what economic efficiency is. Economic efficiency is what? Is a situation where the economy produces the most desired goods and services of the society at the most optimal level. So to produce the most desired goods and to also produce at the optimal level, there are two conditions they have to meet. So this is like everything is perfect. Now, for example, if you want to, let's say, get an A for econ, let's say there are two conditions. One, you need to know your theory. Two, you need to practice papers and be a part of a revision. So let's say under two conditions. Just like that, in order to achieve economic efficiency, there are two conditions. One of it will not help. If you want to get an A, only learning theory can't help. Without theory, doing just papers also might not help. So you need to have both. So how do you do that then? What are the two conditions to achieve economic efficiency, Lamai? Number one, you need to achieve something called production efficiency, or we can call it productive efficiency. What is productive efficiency? Productive efficiency is where you use all your resources, all your land, labor, capital, entrepreneurs, and you use it in a very sustainable way. Now, when I say all the resources, that doesn't mean Lamai, you cut down all your trees and build hotels. You make your people work 24 hours a day. In a sustainable way. So people have to work 8 hours a day. If there are trees, you can't cut all the trees and make furniture. Some of it, okay, fine. Others preserve. So if you use all your resources in the maximum sustainable level, and if you can get the highest output, then you can say the economy has achieved productive efficiency. So what is productive efficiency? refers to achieving the maximum, you can say maximum sustainable output, Lama. Maximum sustainable output from all your resources, getting the maximum contribution from all of them. That's what productive efficiency is. And, and also remember, Lama, when you achieve productive efficiency, you will be producing at the lowest cost because you're using all your resources without wastage, nothing. So your cost and all will be very minimized. So how do you show product now? In order to achieve, I'll come to the showing part in a while. In order to achieve this productive efficiency, to use all your resources and get the maximum output, for that also there are two conditions now. Now, what is my story? I said there is something called economic efficiency. You produce the most desired goods at the most optimal level. To achieve economic efficiency, I told there are another two conditions. Productive efficiency, allocative efficiency. Under productive efficiency, I'm telling productive efficiency is where you produce the maximum possible output, maximum sustainable output from all your resources or produce at the least cost method. Then to achieve this productive efficiency also, there are two conditions now. What are the two conditions? One is to get the maximum sustainable output from your resources. First thing you do is you have to employ all the resources. All your land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship that is there in the country has to be employed in the production process. You have to employ all your land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. And then just employing them also no, it won't help. Now, for example, let's say you have given everyone jobs, but that person is only working for 2 hours a day. Not just full employment, you also have to make sure that all of these fellows are working fully. There has to be full production. So you have to employ all your resources, and all the employed resources have to be used to their maximum sustainable level. So if a person has been given a job, he has to work at least 8 hours a day. So if you have employed all your resources, if you're getting the maximum sustainable output of those employed resources, then you can say you have achieved productive efficiency. That means you're getting the maximum output from all your resources. But getting the maximum output from all your resources is not enough to get economic efficiency. Because economic efficiency is not about just producing at the optimum point. It's not about just producing the maximum output. It's producing what the society wants as well. So you have to produce what the society wants and produce that at the maximum. So therefore, you have the second condition. What is the second condition? That is allocative efficiency. So what is allocative efficiency? Allocative efficiency is where you use your limited resources, all the resources, the land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, right? You're employing all of them, but no point, Tilama, you're employing all of them full production and you're producing something society doesn't want. Let's say you're producing, let's say, typewriters. No one wants typewriters. So even you have productive efficiency, you're producing what people don't want. No point. So you have to use all the resources that is there and produce what the society wants. So producing what the society wants is what you call allocative efficiency now. It refers to the distribution of limited resources based on society's preference. You distribute your resources, you use your resources based on what the society wants. So in order to achieve allocative efficiency, there is a condition. The price has to be equal to marginal cost. Can you make this correction here? This is not marginal cost, marginal revenue anyway. Or marginal benefit has to be equal to marginal cost. That is the condition. So that's the story. I kind of summarize. If this is the first time that you're hearing, this will be complete Greek. Hope you all remember. Then now we look at how to show this on a PPC. How do we show this on a PPC? Can you tell me productive efficiency is where? How do we show productive efficiency on a PPC? How many of you all remember? How do we show productive efficiency on a PPC? So let's say this is again cars and clothes. How do we show that on a PPC? Productive efficiency is Lamai any point on the PPC. Any point on the PPC is productive. So I'll just label 3 points, A, B, and C. Any point on the PPC is productively efficient. Okay, so how do you show productive efficiency? Any point on the PPC. Then, now, in order to achieve economic efficiency, only productive efficiency is not enough. You have to have allocative efficiency. You have to produce what the society wants. So from this A, B, and C, what point does the society want? So does the society want 100 cars and 50 clothes, or do they want 200 cars and, sorry, let's say 50 cars and 100 clothes? How do you figure out what they want? To figure out what they want, Lama, you have to look at Monada. You have to look at allocative efficiency. So that is where these other two side graphs are there. These side graphs are, Lama, let's say this is the graph for cars. This is the marginal benefit curve for cars. This is the marginal cost curve for cars. Based on the marginal benefit and marginal cost, the ideal quantity of cars that has to be produced will be revealed. Remember, the condition for allocative efficiency is marginal cost should be equal to marginal benefit. So then you connect and draw a line here. So let's say the ideal level of cars we need is 1,000 cars. Then how do we figure out the ideal level of clothes we need? For that, Lamai, you need to have the marginal cost and the marginal benefit curve for clothes. That will show you the ideal level of clothes we need. So let's say we need 5,000 clothes. So this point B is the one that is allocatively efficient. So the point where marginal benefit and marginal cost are cutting each other, that's the allocatively efficient one. So point B represents allocative efficiency. A, B, and C represents productive efficiency. Can you all tell me which point represents economic efficiency? To have economic efficiency, you have to have productive and allocative. You have to have both. So which point has both? The point that has both is which point? Point B, no? So that's your economic efficiency. So it's a very common question, Lama, when you go to past papers, Balan. There's a lot of questions coming from this area. So you write around 2-3 answers, you will get comfortable enough. The first time, Lama, if you all can't even write answers alone, look at the tute given an answer. That's okay. Now, no, you all are starting to answer. If you can't answer it alone, instead of not doing the paper, look at the tute and answer. Then, no, Lama, you all will improve. Otherwise, every day can't do, can't do, can't do. Today, if you look at the tute and answer, tomorrow you can do it alone. That's how you this thing. So there is no, don't be the crowd. I always tell this, don't be the crowd that gives excuses. That's the downfall of anyone. People like to take the easy route. No? Now, why do you think most people are not here in class? I will change the class time after November. That's a different story. Most people after school, rainy day, tired, no, I will sleep. This fellow will upload the recording. I'll watch it then. No, that's the excuse that they have. That mentality, it's very hard to become successful in life that way. Now, I really appreciate the fact that I know most of you have gone to school. I know it's not easy, right? I also went for a work meeting today and I came up. That's a different story. But you all are also still here. Right? I know 4 o'clock in the evening is a very bad time, right? You come home by around 2:33. Once you eat, you are a little sleepy, but these fellows put a class at 4. You have to come. But still you're here. That mentality, that attitude, trust me, Lama, will take you somewhere in life. Whether you get an A or a B or a whatever for the exam, That attitude where you will somehow come, trust me, you will go a long way. Because at the end of the day, Ram, I remember A levels is just an exam. We'll try our level best to get a get even more than that. But let's say, Lamai, 5, 10 years later, you will realize that A levels will help you to get, let's say, into a good local uni. And then once you get in your local uni, Lamai, no one will care about your A level result. Then once you get your uni and let's say start getting a job and all, no one will care what your uni results. Then they will care about what type of job experience you have. So little by little, Lamai, at one point, what is very important is not important afterwards. Remember, back in the time when you all were small, scholarship was very important. No, grade 5 scholarship. Did you anyone who passed scholarship? Yes, I proudly failed. I got 98 out of 2. Well, passed? Nice. Actually got 98 out of 2. Okay. Okay, some of you all will have had. So I got 900, but at that point now, that was the biggest thing, no, in life for you. At that, there's a big exam coming, you have to study. Some of us go for classes. That was the thing. And then, then at one point, O levels became the big thing. Now, do you all realize, Lama, now looking back a little, no one really gives a shit about your O level result. Good if you did well, nice. That would have helped you to get to a better school for A levels. But now do you realize, it doesn't make much sense. The same thing. Now, A levels will definitely help you get into a good university. It will help you get somewhere in life. And after you get there, Lama, then A levels will not be important. Let's say once you get to a very good university, let's say a good local university, then you will look back and see, A levels, no. No one gives a shit about your A levels. And then once you, now at university, you will try to get, a good GPA, you will try to get a good result there, a first class degree. And then later you use that and get a job. Now, when you do a job, you realize what you studied is not what you're doing. And that becomes it. So with time, things change. So remember, in life, if you are to be successful, it's not just your A-level result. Life is much, much more. That attitude that you bring to life is very important. So if you want to get anywhere in life, all the people who are successful are not people who got 3 A's in A-levels. A-levels is just an exam. Do it, you give your best shot. It's your last year in schooling, you give your best shot, do as much as possible. And just because you get 3 A's, that doesn't mean you're successful. And just because you don't get 3 A's, that doesn't mean you're unsuccessful also. So you bring that right attitude to the table, that can-do attitude without giving excuses, sacrificing your this thing and working for it, that will go a long, long. So that's what I have to tell you all. Just have that in mind as well. Never be that crowd that gives excuses. I'm not just saying for classes, not just for classes. Sometimes always, you this is too hard, can't do, I'm too tired, can't do this part, I don't understand, this fellow is useless. Don't give that excuse. Somehow, no, I will figure this out. I will get this done. Even if someone asks you and give you a hard task to do, all right, fine. I'll figure this out. I'll get this done. That's that attitude that you need to bring into life. Okay. Right. That is done. Then we'll get into this part. Little bit more. So 15 minutes more, and then I'll give you all a break, and then we can go into the paper. Coming into this now. Coming into explaining macroeconomic concepts on a PPC. So what kind of macroeconomic concepts can we explain on a PPC? So number one, full employment. So we'll put all of this together with a full employment and unemployment. How do we show full employment on a PPC? Full employment means you're using all your resources properly. How do you use that how do you show that on a PPC? If you're using all your resources, just like productive efficiency, you can show that on a PPC. So any point on the PPC will be full employment. How do you show unemployment? Unemployment means you're not using your resources fully. Some people don't have jobs. Some machines are just left idle. That is unemployment. How do you show that on a PPC? That's a point inside the PPC. Let's say point F. Unemployment. So maybe Lamai, if the question says increase in unemployment or something like that, එතකොට ළමයි පොඩ්ඩක් draw a arrow and show. If they just say unemployed resources, point is enough. But if they say increase in unemployment, I'm gonna draw a arrow and show. Okay, that's how you show it. Done. Then coming into this, a recession and depression. How do we show this line? What is a recession? During COVID, Lamai, we said there was a recession in the economy. What is this? A recession is Lamai, a time period where the aggregate demand in the economy comes down. People are not buying anything. People are not spending. We have learned unit number 2. No? The aggregate demand in the economy has come down. So when people are not spending, what happens to the production, Lama? If people are not buying goods, will firms produce the same amount of goods? If no one is buying, no one is spending, firms will not. Firms will also reduce their production. So what happens in a recession? Aggregate demand comes down. People are not spending. Because of that, what happens? Production comes down. No, firms don't produce. If people are not buying Lamai, why will the firms produce? And if production comes down, what happens, Lamai? Will the firms need the same amount of resources as before? Let's say there was a factory that was producing 1,000 t-shirts. Now they are producing only 300 t-shirts. Do they need the same amount of labor? Do they need the same amount of machines they needed before? They need. What happens? Now they fire people. Some machines are just closed and kept. What happens? Unemployment starts to increase. Some people lose jobs. Some machines are just kept idle. And unemployment starts. So then how do you show recession on a PPC? In a recession, what is the end result of a recession? Because of recession, results in unemployed. So you can show that by a point moving inside. That's how you show a recession. Now, if this recession continues, Laman, now let's say for 2 or more quarters, one quarter is 3 months. No? So let's say if it continues for 6 months or more, 2 or more quarters, then what happens, Laman? Then these unemployed resources might start to get destroyed, right? So maybe a machine that you have just closed and kept for 6 months. Now you on it, it's not working. How many of y'all might have a computer that you all, after you bought a laptop, you had a computer small days. Now you bought a laptop. Now the computer is closed and kept somewhere. Now it's not working. You'll have a situation like that. Early you had, I also had a desktop earlier. I remember. After I got a laptop, that desktop was closed and kept. Now I don't think that's even working. So what has happened, Lama? When you just keep the resources without using, what happens? It starts to get destroyed. That's what happens, right? So then those resources are getting destroyed means now, maybe if a person, now let's say, for example, me, I work as a research analyst at a econ firm. So right now I'm very updated with what's happening in the economy. We do presentations, we do, let's say, reports. Let's say for 6 months, I was unemployed. For 6 months, I didn't have a job. I lost my job. Now, 6 months later, now I am not very updated. No? Now I don't know how to, now I'm not able to go and present to a client and say, look here, this is what's happening in the economy. I am not able to write a report about the current economic trends. So what happens? When you are unemployed for 2 or more quarters, we say now the resources start getting destroyed. Your machines might now not work. Your labor skills are now gone. So then how do we show that on a PPC? Your capital decreasing. Think, go back to determinants of PPC. If your capital is decreasing, if your labor is going down, how can we show that? That is where a depression comes in. There, the PPC itself shifts in. So a recession is a short-term thing, just a point. But if the recession goes for 2 or more quarters, then machines are now unemployed, machines are just broken, people are losing their skills now, and the PPC will shift. Okay, done. Then this one, the last one, current consumption and economic growth. Yes, I'll give you a good example, like Last week, I don't know if you're, I didn't tell you all this, I told the other batch. So last week I was in India for a small 1 week. So a good example that I can give you based on this. Okay. So the example between current consumption and economic growth. Now, in general, Lamai, a economy can broadly produce two types of goods. What are the two types of goods? One is capital goods. The other one is consumer goods. Capital goods and consumer goods. So let's say, Lama, we'll take an example of this is India. So this is, let's say, India. Let's say this is Sri Lanka. So you're going to, I'll give you the story and I'll tell you. Right now, Lama, we'll take example of in Chennai. In India, Lama, right now they are producing this metro, this rail services, the metro rail, electric rail, right? You can travel very, very fast, right? No traffic block, nothing, right? So they are producing that metro rail. So to produce this metro, Lamai, now in the main road, it's going from the middle of the main road. The main normal, you all know main roads, no? Main where vehicles go. On top of it only, they put a huge beam and the whole train is going. Now, in order to construct that, Lama, you can't make that in a day or two. So I remember last time when I went to India to watch the World Cup last year also, they were still making it. This time when I went also, now some is made, but it's still making. Okay. And then there was a board also next to that metro. Now, because of that metro construction, Lamai, they are digging the roads. Now they have to make the metro stations and all that. So that is the train stop. They have to make the stations. They have to build that whole thing. It's not an easy thing. So then because of that, Lamai, there is so much of traffic in the road now. Because, well, imagine huge construction is happening all around the city. So crazy amount of traffic. But there was a board that said, then only I remembered our whole economics lesson. There was a board that said, uh, sacrifice your today for a better tomorrow. That was a small board the government has put near the construction site. Sacrifice your today for a better tomorrow. So how do you connect that with our econ stuff, Lama? What's happening over here? So right now, what is India doing? Right now, what is India doing is, Lama, they are producing a lot of capital goods. So what are capital goods? Capital goods are goods used to produce more. Now, for example, this metro, machinery, buildings, equipment, those are called capital goods. So right now they're producing a lot of capital goods. They're producing these rail services, this one, that one, everything. And they are not producing much consumer goods. So there is, now if you take consumer goods, not much. I'm saying, not that they're not producing, they're producing. But now consumer goods are the goods that we use for our day-to-day consumption. So based on consumer goods, you can look at your living standard. So right now in Chennai, Lamai, what can you tell about the current living standard? What can you tell about that? The high levels of traffic and this, and they are not producing uh, much consumer goods. What about their current living standard? Currently, living standard is very low, no? Traffic and so much of annoying stuff. So current living standard is low. What do you think, Lamai, now in, let's say, 5 years later, once this metro is completely made, once people can go in these electric trains, and it goes, right? So they already have, right? They already have these electric trains. They're just increasing the amount of line. They have 2 routes. They're making 5 routes in total. So they're making 3 more. So what about 5 years later, Namai? Yeah, now there are 2 routes to be used. What about 5 years later? What about their future economic growth, Lamai? Future economic growth potential. Will they grow a little or will they grow a lot? In the future, Lamai, once the metro comes, once all of that comes, Lamai, in the future, there will be high economic growth. So they are in the future, Lamai, their PPC will shift a lot. There will be a big shift in their PPC. Because why? They sacrifice their current consumption. Sacrifice your today for a better tomorrow. They sacrifice their current consumption for a better. Now, let's say now Sri Lanka is the opposite game. Let's say in Sri Lanka, we are producing more consumer goods. So now we have nice different things. So what about our current living standard? If we have a lot of consumer goods, our current living standard will be high. We have a lot of consumer goods, nice food, traffic nato roads, right? Current living standard is high. But we are not producing much capital goods. Then what happens now? Our economy will grow. We are producing a little capital goods, so our economy will grow, but it will grow little or a lot. What about our future growth potential? Future growth potential. This is going to be much low, no? We will grow, but we will grow a very little. That is what happens. And that's how your current consumption decision affects economic growth. If you can reduce your consumer goods and produce more capital goods, if you can consume at, let's say, point A here, then in the future you can grow a lot. But if you're producing, let's say, at point B here, producing more consumer goods, then in the future you might not be able to grow that much. That's the story there. Okay, done. Done. Okay, I just the last slide, and then we can take a small break. This is asking Lamai. We'll go into the paper. Paper has more questions. Paper is a difficult one. Yes, I'm also thinking, do you want to do the other way around? We can do it the other way around also. Now, usually I ask you to do the paper before we do the class. I can explain the recap the theory, and then maybe for next week you can do the paper. Do you want to do it that way? Or are you okay with doing the paper before and then we recap and discuss it? We can do it the other way around as well. No problem, as long as the paper is done, as long the we finish our work, we are okay. After the explanation. Okay, so then next week we'll try that and see. We'll try it and see. Anyway, next week, the first class, the first focus area is demand and elasticity. That's a big focus area. So then next week, what we'll do is, you don't have to do the revision paper. Next week, we'll discuss all the area, the demand area. I will recap it in the class. Then the following week, now we have discussed the area. You will do the paper and you will submit. Then following week, I will quickly, in 1 hour, I will teach the paper. The next 1 hour, I will teach the next week's focus area. Then you can do that paper. So we'll try to make a small change there. Then at least you'll recap it and do the paper. We'll try it out and see, no problem, nothing. So explain how the following situations can be illustrated on a PPC. So all of this is same now. That's why I have given one PPC. So here's the discovering of new resources. So maybe what has happened? Our factor endowment has gone. Obtaining ownership for new resources. Inflow of resources from foreign countries. Maybe we imported machines. Increase in resource stock through new technology. Increase in foreign loans. Improvement in technology. New techniques. Well, all of this will cause your PPC to do what? Where would your PPC go? There's one answer for all of this. What's the answer? Will it move? Is it a point movement? Is it a shift? If it's a shift, tell me where. Shift is either in leftward or out rightward. Where is PPC will shift, it will shift out. So can you see, Lama, in all of these, the determinants of a PPC is changing. I told the PPC will shift if any of the determinants change. Now, in the first one, under your resources are increasing. So land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Second one also, you're getting ownership of new resources. So maybe you got new machines, you got this. Third one, inflow of resources. So you're getting, let's say, machines from abroad. Fourth one, better technology, productivity. Fifth one, you're getting loans. You're getting more money. You can, with that money, you can buy more capital and increase. So whenever your resource productivity or your resource endowment increase or decrease, my PPC will should have that in mind. So that is the theory recap part. I took around 1.5 hours to go through that. So with that, we're done with this. Shall we take a small break and then we'll get into revision paper number 4. The paper is a little bit of a difficult one and it's a bit of a long one as well. So I think in 1 hour we should be able to this thing. Some very easy parts I will skip because I will share the answer scheme. The difficult ones will go through. So shall we take a break until 5:35? You have around 7 minutes to walk around, get some water and come. So take a break till 5:35. We will wrap up by around 6:35. Take a break and